For today's talk, the sutta that I'll be covering with you comes from the Numerical Discourses, the Anguttara Nikāya. As you know, for 5 weeks straight, we've had the Pottapada Sutta, a rich, colorful, multi-layered sutta that requires us to go back to it again and again, because there's so many jewels there for us to uncover, to enhance our understanding of the Dhamma, especially in relation to the way we perceive things, the things that go unspoken, things that we take for granted about our own ways of thinking, our ways of understanding the world, and especially the spiritual path, because everything depends on the way we function on the subterranean level of our thinking. What is the undercurrent filter that we have? Because each of us has such filters. There's different terms for it in the Dhamma. Usually, ditti is used, views, or the perspective that we hold. It's almost like the dictionary or the logbook or the code book of how we understand everything that comes in through the world, through the eyes, through the mind, whatever we perceive, whatever we understand. And we don't function independent of such methods of code breaking or understanding the world. Any idea that comes in, it goes through that sifter. About 2 months ago, we did the Chula Pantaka, maybe a month and a half ago. And the tool there that Lord Buddha used for Venerable Chula Pantaka was a piece of cloth, which he was to rub and strike away, get rid of dirt. Meanwhile, he was adding dirt. That is a counterintuitive method that challenges one's own perspective, understanding. It flip-flops everything. It just turns it upside down, in a sense. And Lord Buddha, as well as his noble disciples, were very good at that. We need to do that with ourselves. We need to challenge our understanding, our ways of thinking, our ways of conceiving and processing information. And that's not something that goes beyond the Pottapada Sutta, which we've covered for over a month. But today's sutta comes from the Anguttara Nikāya, from the Book of the Eights, Sutta number 8.7. It is the Devadatta Vipatti Sutta. And Devadatta is known throughout the Buddhist world, and actually some other traditions or people who don't profess Buddhist ways of thinking or beliefs, however, they also know about Devadatta, given his notorious standing in the history of Buddhism, of the Sasana, and what he tried to do. So Devadatta was the brother-in-law, sometimes also referred to as the cousin of Siddhartha Gautama, or the Buddha. He was the brother of Queen or Princess Yashodhara, who was the spouse of Siddhartha Gautama. And he also was, when Lord Buddha became the Buddha, and after he had gone visiting the Sakyans in Kapilavatthu, after he left, when Venerable Anuruddha, Venerable Ananda, etc., the princes basically of the Sakyans, when they decided to also go forth, a group of them, along with Venerable Upali, their barber at the time, they left, and Devadatta was there with them to go and to go forth. So he was one of those princes. So Devadatta had a thing against Lord Buddha because he practiced, taught by Lord Buddha, the practice of the jhanas, and he was able to go not beyond the fourth jhana. So he was able to attain to some of these psychic abilities. So he had those qualities for some time, which, again, this is where I wanted to come back to what I was saying as to the person's, the individual's narrative, worldview. Where are we coming from? Devadatta ended up misusing, abusing the role that he had as a monastic, as a bhikkhu, in fact, as a meditator. Because the goodies that one gets, in his case, because his drive was to use those abilities that he came across in his practice, namely some of the psychic abilities with which he wanted to augment or support his negative aspirations, his worldview, because he had an issue. He had, as a psychotherapist, looking at it, as a sociologist, looking at his actions and just looking at the patterns of his behavior, you see that this person was unhappy to begin with. Most probably he had tremendous jealousies even before Lord Buddha became Lord Buddha. As a prince, here was a person who was taking his sister away. Not only that, but his sister ended up being left behind as Siddhartha Gautama walks away from her and his newborn child. So all of those things become factors where his anger becomes more and more festering inside of him. So there's different ways of looking at it, of course, but primarily you see the unwholesome underlying themes that were ongoing even as he came to Lord Buddha to renounce the household life. So he ended up trying to kill Lord Buddha 3 times. And then he tried to, when those attempts didn't work, one of them was, well, he used his psychic abilities without getting too much details, but there's different, in the Dhammapada and elsewhere, we have information about how he tried to convince Prince Ajatasattu, who was the son of King Bimbisara, who was a noble disciple, who was already a Sotapanna, who had tremendous faith in Lord Buddha. If you recall, King Bimbisara was the one who offered Siddhartha Gautama, prior to becoming Lord Buddha, more than half of his kingdom, because he was moved by this bhikkhu. He had never seen anyone like him, with so much regal, so much depth and honesty in every single pace with which he was walking on Pindapada. So he was very much taken by his behavior and honesty. So he knew there was something special. So when Lord Buddha declined his offer and saying that he already had walked away from a kingdom, his father's kingdom, so he didn't need to go and pander and basically take the other people's wealth and royal status, whatever. His goal was much bigger, he said. He wants to put an end to samsara. He wanted to attain the truth. And when King Bimbisara heard this, and the fearlessness of Lord Buddha and the generosity and non-attached attitude towards wealth, prestige, he said, please, Venerable Sir, when you do find path, come back and teach, please, teach me. And Lord Buddha does that after he became Lord Buddha. And so he becomes a Sotapanna, King Bimbisara. So his son, Prince Ajatasattu, who was a good son for the most part, Devadatta appears before him psychically in the body of a little child. And he has like serpents and cobras around his body. He just wanted to be so bombastic, so earth-shatteringly shocking in front of Prince Ajatasattu in his own chambers. And then to move him to be, inspiring confidence, I guess, in Prince Ajatasattu. And it was successful because his goal was to convince Prince Ajatasattu, who loved his father initially. So he planted these seeds, poisonous seeds, in the mind of this prince to kill his own father. So Devadatta caused Prince Ajatasattu to even commit patricide, killing of his own father, causing the death of his own father by removing him from his throne and locking him up, and then, slowly watching him die, basically. That was not enough. He also wanted to be assigned by King Ajatasattu as the head of the Sangha. So his goal was to replace Lord Buddha with himself. So you see the evil in his approach. He also tried to, and those things didn't work. He had hired the best of mercenaries and hitmen, if you will, commandos of now King Ajatasattu to go and assassinate Lord Buddha. That attempt didn't work because every single one of those assassins ended up being noble disciples. So, because Lord Buddha knew what was happening, and he preemptively went to each of these individuals as they were getting ready to shoot arrows. One was going to shoot the Lord Buddha and kill him as he was coming back from Vindapada. Lord Buddha went through another route and taught him the Dhamma, and the person saw the Dhamma, threw away his bows and arrows, and because he developed faith. And the other individuals who were assigned to kill that assassin, etc., all the way, I think it was about 16 different assassins. So very conniving, very evil in his ways of thinking, Devadatta. And then finally, the biggest, the most famous event was when he had the king's royal elephant, I forgot the name of the elephant, but had him drunk. So he poured intoxicants into the water bucket where the elephant was drinking from. And then he advised the elephant, Mahout, the king's Mahout, to release this huge elephant onto the path where Lord Buddha would be coming up from his Pindapada to attack him. And he did. But Lord Buddha and Venerable Ananda jumped in front of Lord Buddha to try to protect him. But Lord Buddha just gently pushed him aside and said, Ananda, do not worry. And Lord Buddha radiated his compassion onto the elephant. And then finally, Devadatta tried to take things in his own hands and rolled a huge boulder down the Gijja peaks or the Vulture's Peak, which is in Rajagha. It still exists. It's there. You can go up. It's a nice platform that they now have. But on the way up the narrow trail, that's where Devadatta rolled the rock, the boulder. But even though it missed Lord Buddha, nevertheless, a piece of rock, basically, it ricocheted off of the boulder, and it came and scratched deeply the ligaments and tendons of Lord Buddha's foot, which bled profusely. And that is one of the most terrible things that anyone can do, which is spilling of the blood of an arahant, and especially a Buddha. Terrible, acts. And this is, he had already attempted to break the Sangha and asked Lord Buddha. He tried instituting new principles, such as turning the Sangha vegetarian, for example. He came in and said, we cannot eat any meat. The Lord Buddha said, even though, I leave it up to the bhikkhus to choose if they do eat meat or not, become vegetarian, and to make that a rule, that is what I'm against. But he didn't like that, and so he had a whole list of things. Another one was living very Spartan, in a Spartan way, where very, very limited, wearing the most coarsest of robes, etc. Basically, to come across as a real, dedicated, austere, ascetic practices, which Siddhartha Gautama knew everything about, having lived it. Lord Buddha said, no, I cannot impose any of this as a rule. If the bhikkhu wishes to, then that's fine. And they're not causing harm to themselves. That's fine, but I will not make such things as rules. But he wasn't doing it for the posterity of Devadatta, trying to suggest even these things, but he wanted to stand separate, or look like he is more authentic in his spirituality, whatever that means, because he was trying to influence the newbies, the new bhikkhus, the newcomers, the new novices. So some of them were impressed, in fact, enough that he said, well, in that case, I will leave the Sangha. So he walked away. So he severed not only his connection to the Sangha, but he severed the Sangha because a group of the bhikkhus got up and left with him because their hearts were not set in the Dhamma. And Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana, a little bit later, got up and left and went behind him. And Devadatta, when he saw the chief disciples coming, he thought that they too were now on his side. And they quietly came and sat. And he's like, yeah, he was talking, trying to speak Dhamma. And then he started pretending like he was Lord Buddha himself. And he said, Sariputta, I'm going to lie down, which is what Lord Buddha used to do, but because of his backache. So in his pretending, Devadatta, in fact, goes to sleep, which Lord Buddha never did when a Dhamma talk or sermon was being given, even by Sariputta along his side, as he was resting from his pain. So he, on the other hand, just dozes off and goes to sleep, Devadatta. And Sariputta starts to talk some sense to the rest of the bhikkhus. And he teaches them the Dhamma, and they realize their mistake. All these other bhikkhus who were there with him, who had left Lord Buddha to come with Devadatta. And Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana get up and they go back to Lord Buddha, and they are followed by the group of bhikkhus. So Devadatta then, after all his snoring and all that, when he wakes up, he sees that the bhikkhus had left. So he's left with just a handful of, followers of his. But he was already out of the Sangha, but he wanted to create his own Sangha. And we have some stories, additional ones, of where and what type of havoc he tried to commit the damages that he tried to do and commit, and in that capacity. So, in other words, Devadatta was the epitome of what ego can do on the spiritual path. Imagine you're that close. You are living at the time of Lord Buddha. You are, in fact, listening to Lord Buddha teach. He is your teacher. He's the one who grants you the robes, the bowl. He's the one who's instructing you. But what happens during the spiritual practice, as the person is developing, what is the person coming with? This is key. So this sutta is powerful because it also allows us to see and be honest and candid with our own objectives. Because as we go deep in this practice, things will be coming up, but things will also be cultivated in such a way where you will be really astonished at the quality of your mind, your behavior, your attitude towards things. But we're always digging. We're always digging, like in the anthill simile that we did. You're always digging with wisdom. So there's not a place, so long as you haven't attained to the arahantship stage, or at least Sotapatti, you never stop. So you need to always question your motives. Is there greed? Am I mesmerized by gain? Oh, look at the attention. So many people are just craving that attention, wanting to become teachers, wanting to have a following, wanting to have this, that. There's so many things that will get you stuck, and Devadatta was stuck, and that's why he failed. But that's the, I guess, preamble to the sutta that I wanted to, or the introduction to this wonderful sutta. So Anguttara Nikāya 8.7, Devadatta Vipatti Sutta, Devadatta's failure. Let's begin. While the Blessed One was living among the Gijja peaks in Rajagha, Devadatta left the Lord's dispensation. And soon after, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus by discussing Devadatta and said the following. Bhikkhus, it is appropriate and wise for the bhikkhu to reflect on his failures from time to time, and from time to time to also reflect on the failures of others. Similarly, bhikkhus, it is appropriate and wise for the bhikkhu to reflect on his own accomplishments from time to time, and from time to time to also reflect on the accomplishments of others. In a time period where we have become so skilled at hiding, so skilled at, putting the dust over things and just covering up, pretending not to see things, simply to keep the status quo going, so we do not ruffle anyone's feathers, or we don't, shake up the boat, as it were. In such pretentious times, this sutta is crucial for us to go over, to hear, to see, because oftentimes what I'm noticing is even within the circle of Dhamma, people have this misconception that Lord Buddha always avoided. He never confronted, because over the last decades, certain teachers have come out and started writing, talking, and they presented this very soft image of what a bhikkhu is, or what Lord Buddha was, or is in the suttas, that he always avoided. They cherry-picked some of the statements that Lord Buddha made, such as avoiding conflict, not bringing up things, the wrong things about a certain person's behavior. Of course, Lord Buddha said those things, but context is key. So what they do is they really have this laissez-passer, let them be type of a thing, laissez-faire attitude, and they go ahead and use examples of Lord Buddha's statements as validations of such claims. And that is not fair. That's simply cherry picking. You're using things to fit your own agenda. But what does that leave us with? A dishonest society, dishonest Sangha, dishonest Dhamma even. Dhamma is thorough. Imagine like that story I've shared with you maybe a year or two ago, where a person goes and tries to, a barber. In those days, earlier days, they would not have surgeons. So a farmer has a deeply ingrained nail into his ankle bone, and he's suffering. So he goes to this surgeon / barber, and for a long time he's mending the wound, but he's never pulling out the rusty nail inside the wound. Until the apprentice one day, it's left to him to, because the barber's not there, the apprentice sees the thing and he pulls it out, along with the pus and all the nastiness. Lord Buddha teaches us that. And that's what we're hearing here. We're seeing him say, time to time, it is important, Lord Buddha says, to observe one's own failures, like what are the impediments? What are my shortcomings in my practice, in my way of thinking, in my approach, as well as the shortcomings of others. So Lord Buddha is teaching us to be realists, not deniers. We don't cover it up. There's a way of settling disputes in the Sangha. It's one of the rules that we have of how to settle cases within the Sangha. One of them is to cover, in fact, the very last one is to cover up with grass, it's called. If it is minor, if it is this, not to make a big deal, and let's, bygones be bygones type of a thing. If there is good intention on both sides and the person acknowledges their mistake or it's a minor thing, okay, let's move on type of a thing. Yes, of course, that's there. But we also have to be realists. If there's a failure somewhere, I have to address it. So the surgeon's job is not to see the hammer that's left inside the wound. They don't close it up. They don't suture it up. They have to remove the nasty tumor, the thing that's there that's bugging the person, bothering the person. And then they will suture it up. They will close the wound, but they remove it. What today we have are teacher after teacher, ajahn after ajahn, sayadaw after sayadaw, bhante after bhante, leaving the tumor inside. Lord Buddha was not called the ultimate surgeon for nothing. He would cut it open, go in there, remove it. Remove it. But in order for you to remove, you need to know what is what. So Lord Buddha is here encouraging us to look at our own failures and the failures of others, as well as to reflect on the positive things, the changes that have been happening. So here you can do before and after. Look at, because sometimes we have this, negative bias towards ourselves. When things are not going, when the practice isn't going well, the tendency of the mind, unevolved or putujjana mind, is to go ahead and completely do the all or nothing thinking. You generalize a lot and say, oh, I'm not dancing, I'm not practicing, I'm doing everything wrong, I'm on the wrong. No, that's not fair. That's not fair. Do a before and after look. Was I like this a year ago, 5 years ago, when I first started the path? Am I going to make the same mistakes as I did then, if I'm presented with the same circumstances? If you've truly been practicing, the answer is a resounding no. Why? Because you've been developing. So we need to be fair. Lord Buddha is saying to reflect on your own accomplishments as well as the accomplishments of others. So again, he's talking about being realists, which today seems that that's not very attractive within the Dhamma circles. And that is such a, it's an unfortunate reality. But we don't have to subscribe to that because we have the Dhamma. We don't have to subscribe to anybody's ideas or opinions or interpretation of the Dhamma. The Dhamma is there in the suttas. We can read it and make our own conclusions. So, Lord Buddha continues, Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by 8 things, Devadatta is now lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, without getting any relief nor a chance for redemption. Now imagine if, would you imagine any teacher saying that today? Any bhikkhu saying that? Everybody's giving the runaround. Everybody's trying to look nice and not be so confrontational. Look at this statement. Lord Buddha is saying Devadatta is now lost. How many people you know can actually say that with that much honesty, if the case is similar? He's headed straight to hell. There's a lot of people doing a lot of evil things these days, not just within the Sangha, but the world at large. Nobody's coming out and saying things to kind of really be honest. But let's see what these 8 things are. Now, what are these 8 things? So his heart was dominated and consumed by these 8 things. That's why Devadatta has fallen. So let's see. 1. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by gain, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. So he was still alive, by the way. Devadatta was still alive. And he was very much set on his ways. So after his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by loss and the fear of missing out, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. Lord Buddha was never afraid to call things out, as you can tell. Something that needs to be talked about, especially now, because we are living in evil times. Evil is dominating the world. Whichever way you cut it, you have to be really, really blind in your mind not to see the evil that's going on. And as practitioners, we need to see the evil that's going on, the delusion that's going on, the adhamma that's going on within the Dhamma circles. So we need to revive or bring up the reality of rebirth and where we will end up as individuals given our intentional actions, no matter the position, whether a person is a layperson or a monastic. But we don't talk about that for some reason. Everybody seems to be going to heaven or something like that. Meanwhile, the actions that the person commits when they're alive contradicts that possibility. So here, Lord Buddha is very much categorically laying it out, as they say. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by fame, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. You can't talk your way out, basically, of actions. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by disgrace, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery. And he repeats that. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by honor, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle. That's a kalpa or kappa, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by dishonor, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery. Continues on, repeating that section. Bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by evil thoughts and desires, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. In the hell realms, it's not like because of the person crying and wailing and begging and all that, somebody will come in and say, you know what, I think this is enough. I think this 1,000 years of just getting your limbs cut off and this and that, I think that's okay, we forgive you. There is no such thing. It has to do with the weight, the pressure, the intensity of one's actions, of how bad it was, the intensity of it. It will get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter as the person is enduring all the terrible, terrible tortures that the evil actions that they've committed induced. So no one is doing that to them, essentially. It's the evil intention and the actionability of those things that they went ahead and did, that weight with the amount of, so it's like it's releasing the pressure as the person is going through it. As the pressure is released, that person's, the intensity of the torture and where they are reborn, whichever part of the hell realms, because there's several layers to it, become less. For that reason, some beings, when it becomes really, really light, depending on the punishment or the whatever they had to undergo until then, sometimes it gets so light that they quickly are reborn into a little bit higher realm, or even a human realm in some cases, or completely shoot all the way up to a deva realm, because the intensity of the torture was so much and it was balancing out whatever they just underwent for a few thousand years or million years, or even years or days in some cases. That can release them because of the balancing of the opposite nature of the actions that they had committed also, meaning the good actions that they have done intentionally. They're also there. So it's a balancing. So causality even plays out in the hell realms. Not that you are being or doing something there. No, you're there as, as a fully susceptible to whatever you've already done. That's why you do not make new kamma while in the hell realms. You're just facing the music, as it were. So that's why we also see here Lord Buddha saying, after an entire world cycle, Devadatta will be released. So he's not going to come out anytime soon. So he's still there. He's going to be there for a long, long time, because it's only been about 2,600 years almost. And number 8, bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by evil companionships and friendships, Devadatta is lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, during which he will get no relief nor a chance for redemption. In this way, bhikkhus, while possessing a heart that is consumed and dominated by these 8 things, Devadatta is now lost, headed straight to hell and nowhere else. After his death, he will be reborn in the realms of absolute misery, where he will stay and suffer for an entire world cycle, without getting any relief nor chance for redemption. For this reason, bhikkhus, it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of gain as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. Remember that bit I mentioned about being honest and candid with yourself? When you're noticing that you're so driven by gain, that gain could be any kind of gain. Gain of reputation, gain of prestige, gain of money. Don't go just, counting your laurels and fixing your crown over your head and just being mesmerized by wow. That's what we have today. People who go and say wow about themselves to themselves. No, there's something terribly wrong, and one has to see it as soon as possible. Or be surrounded by individuals who see it and tell you. But if they don't tell you, then you're really in hot water. Because you're surrounded by the wrong people who are not telling you what they need to tell you, the facts. Remember from the Mangala Sutta, Lord Buddha says, to be surrounded not by foolish people, but wise people. To respect those, not the foolish people. So hang out with good companions, not terrible companions. So the good companion is going to tell you, be candid with you, to protect you ultimately. Also, because it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of loss as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. Whether it's somebody, they lose in their lives. When Venerable Ananda was grieving the loss of his teacher, of his very good friend, the Kalyana Mitta, Venerable Sariputta, the chief disciple who had died, when he found out about the news, he broke down, he was in tears, he was in disarray, he was lost. Lord Buddha saw how much he was in pain, and he asked him, did Sariputta give you any of those things that you have now in the Dhamma? Understanding, realization, etc., etc. And he says, no, Bhante. Well, then, by his death, did he take away any of those realizations and attainments and understanding that you have? He says, no, Bhante. He says, there you go. That doesn't mean that the loss was not being experienced. It's a terrible thing, of course, especially someone like that. Even Lord Buddha looked around when Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana had died, both of them, the chief disciples. Lord Buddha looked around the entire Sangha and he said, the Sangha looks empty to me now that Sariputta and Moggallana are gone. That tells you something about the humanity of Lord Buddha. He was not insensitive. He was not made of, he was real. But you need to know that. The person, Lord Buddha was there to tell Ananda, I see your sense of loss. And then Venerable Ananda realized, yeah, that's true, actually. Sariputta did not give me my attainment. Sariputta's death is not going to take away my attainment. No teacher gives you that. And no teacher can take away anything that is genuinely there. Also, because it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of fame as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. Also, because it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of disgrace as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. If you do something, if you realize that was wrong of me to do, don't go dwelling on it, Lord Buddha is saying. See it, acknowledge it, be candid about it. Confront those individuals who were in that situation. Apologize when it's there. It needs to be said. And that's another thing which today people don't have. thinking that they are not liable to apology for some reason. No, so long as you're alive, so long as you're not an arahant, I mean, come on, Venerable Sariputta, being an arahant, would apologize left and right. I once got into a disagreement when I was briefly, the first time I was in the UK, when there was an incident, and I mentioned to the fellow Bhikkhu, I was ordained, I was a Bhikkhu at the time, and I said, Bhante, Venerable Sariputta himself bowed down to a young novice who pointed out by scoldingly to Venerable Sariputta and said, hey, excuse me, your robe is touching the ground. Venerable Sariputta had just gotten up and he was, he was doing some other things. And at that moment, come on, he's there. He says, oh, he doesn't say, who are you over there? You're nothing. You're not even a pimple. Who are you? Talking to me, the chief disciple, and scoldingly and telling me I've done something wrong? No, instead, Venerable Sariputta quickly, without missing a beat, he quickly goes in front of the child, because it was a child talking to him, fixes his robe, and guess what? Puts his hands in Anjali and bows to the child. The chief disciple, the general of the Dhamma himself, said, I'm sorry, teacher. Teacher, how many bhikkhus do that? How many of us do that? How many lay students do that today when they flat out do some things that are pretty stupid or wrong? We need to be humble. So it's disgraceful when someone does something wrong, even if there's a suspicion in the mind, even if they think they've done no wrong, they need to address it. Maybe I've done something. And that shows the sasana's aliveness. That shows that there's life for the sasana still, when there is that humility. Also, bhikkhus, it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of honor as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. How could one might say, how could honor being, receiving honor be something bad? Well, it's not the honor itself being something bad case, but it is what might be happening in me because of the honor being received. In the Vimansaka Sutta from the Majjhima Nikāya, Lord Buddha talks about this in detail as to how is it that one can tell if a monk truly is a good monk or not. So he gives so many different ways of looking at the character of the monk, such as, he says, well, simply because the monk is not behaving in in a greedy way or hoarding anything, doesn't mean that he is like that now. He says, wait, spend some time. Wait, watch the monk. Watch his circle grow. Watch his community grow. Watch his temple grow, let's say. Watch his number of supporters grow. All these things. And then you will see, he says, whether this monk is truly a good monk or not. So there's so many different examples that Lord Buddha gives here. So here also, we need to observe temporally. And that's one of the reasons why we have to be with Kalyana Mittas, the right ones, to tell us, this is wrong, that's, do you think this was right? We have to. It's called feedback, right? Getting feedback. That's what we do in the office as lay people. Similarly on a retreat. Similarly in the Sangha. Also, because it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of dishonor as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. Also, because it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any evil thoughts and desires as soon as they are encountered and fully overcome them. So when we have evil thoughts, and so long as we are not arahants, we will have evil thoughts that come in. Sometimes it's mara, but most of the time it's not mara, it's our sankharas. Because we've lived with ignorance for eons and eons and eons. It's us. We started it, the momentum, long time ago. So, when evil thoughts and desires show up, we need to address them. Not pretend they don't exist. Not sugarcoat them. Not camouflage them. Not say, I got this, I'm going to push it down. No. Because it will backfire. And bhikkhus, it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address evil companionships or friendships as soon as they are encountered and fully overcome them. Don't tell yourself, I think he's a good guy, or I think she's a good person. It's okay. I know that she tried to do this or tempt me or this or that. I know he tried to steal money from me or from the sangha, or I know no. Don't sugarcoat anything. Address it first of all. Look. If you were a boss, if you had your own business, and if you have 2 employees and a lot is riding on it, as they say, whatever decisions are made by each of you, all 3 of you, can make or break the company. So you don't have the luxury of constantly ignoring the problem. So you must address it as soon as possible. But if it is persisting, then it means you are in wrong company. If your employees, or even one of them, is stealing, even if you have a company of 100 employees and one of them is stealing, that's a terrible thing. So in the business world, in the household life, if that were to be the case, we quickly take action, quickly. But when it comes to the spiritual path, why is it different for many of us? Why is it that we do not handle the situation correctly and swiftly? That is what Lord Buddha is saying here. And why? Because is it necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address? So now Lord Buddha highlighted, this is what needs to be done. And as a great versatile teacher that he was, he's now giving you the reason as to why he needs to quickly address. And why? Because is it necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of gain as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. So I've written it separately here, but I'm going to just list each of these 8 because it's a repetition, although it's a one sentence. Why is it necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address any sense of loss as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it? Similarly with fame, disgrace, honor, dishonor, evil thoughts and desires, and evil companionships or friendships as soon as they are encountered and fully overcome them. Because, bhikkhus, the contaminants, the asavas, that would have otherwise arisen, inevitably plaguing the heart of someone else who hasn't yet overcome the sense of gain, burning in his mind with feverish distress, simply would not occur for the bhikkhu, who does indeed quickly address the sense of gain whenever he encounters it. So, in the case of anyone else other than such a bhikkhu who quickly addresses the situation, when there is the situation of gain, when you have gained something, again, it could be prestige, it could be money, It could be anything. And again, this is not about just monastics, but Lord Buddha is talking about Devadatta, who had started as a bhikkhu, but he was no longer, because he was basically defeated. Okay, even though he was walking around carrying himself as an abbot, as a this, as a head of a sangha, and some people didn't know better, and they were going and joining his sangha, and soon enough they were realizing that who they were dealing with. This person was not in any way sangha. So what was happening is the gain will go straight to the head. So it's like a person who in the office who gets a promotion, but you guys were both friends for 7-8 years. You didn't get promoted, he did. He gets a new title. He gets a parking space for his car closer to the main door, to the office, with his name on it, reserved for this person. Is his attitude different towards you? That's the quickest way to know who you're dealing with. I remember when someone I know, I've known for over 30 years, and we had the same teacher. I was a layman, he was a bhikkhu. He was a young bhikkhu, and all that. So, but after our teacher died, because I couldn't become a monk, because I didn't get my permission from my father, he kept on, being a monk. So he ended up getting the abbot position. He was no longer accessible as a person, as a friend. He became different, and it got, so there was this air about the person, gain, prestige, all that, and the jealousies and everything else that anything that comes to threaten that gain makes that person protect themselves against you or anyone else whom they see as a threat. And that's what Devadatta was viewing everyone, starting with Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha was a threat. That's why he wanted him eliminated by King Ajatasattu. And he was failing because King Ajatasattu said, no way. This is the Buddha. I can't do that. You got me to kill my father. That's it. Because he soon enough realized his mistake and he regretted it terribly. And he went to Lord Buddha and apologized, this, that, crying, tears and tears and tears. But Lord Buddha said, it's done now. What I can do is I can give you, I can still continue giving you Dhamma. But because he had committed patricide, King Ajatasattu, there's a wonderful sutta, I forgot the name of it, but basically it's a long sutta, and you see several of these, especially in the Digha Nikāya in the beginning. And after such a long, detailed, beautiful, loaded sutta, King Ajatasattu bows down respectfully and he leaves, and Lord Buddha turns to the bhikkhus and shakes his head and says, how stupid. He was so ready. He could have at least attained Sotapatti, but he will not, he says. He was going to attain it, but because of the fact that he killed his father in this lifetime, it's impossible for him to attain. You cannot attain if you spill the blood of an arahant or a Buddha, if you try to kill any of them. If you kill your mother or father, it's impossible. If you engage in any sexual activity as a bhikkhu, it's impossible for you to attain. That's it. It's defeated. So there's terrible consequences. The biggest one, obviously, was King Ajatasattu not being able to attain, despite the fact that Lord Buddha himself was teaching him the Dhamma, such a beautiful Dhamma, and he failed. So, without going on too far of a tangent, similarly, bhikkhus, the contaminants that would have otherwise arisen, inevitably plaguing the heart of someone else who hasn't yet overcome the sense of loss, burning in his mind with feverish distress, simply would not occur for the bhikkhu, who does indeed quickly address the sense of loss whenever he encounters it. That's what Lord Buddha was doing in that example I just gave you earlier of Venerable Ananda in regards to Venerable Sariputta's death. You acknowledge it. You acknowledge it and you understand anicca. Because of anicca, there's dukkha. I'm sorry. Every single loved one you have will die. Either you're going to die first or they're going to die, but somebody's going to die first. Somebody's going to die. In fact, everyone will die. But there will be that loss. You signed a contract when you wanted to come to this life with bhava. Sorry, you signed. You see that signature? That's you. That's called breathing. In and out breathing. You're here. Sankharas are here, saluting you. We're going to deal with it. But deal with it, see it with wisdom, and continue on the path. End it. End it. That's suffering. That is dukkha. Dukkha is not something mental. It's not a concept. Devadatta was suffering, but his suffering was, in his mind, caused by other people. And if he could eliminate those other people, including Lord Buddha, to get everything to be according to his liking, as if he was going to live forever. Even Mahabrahma himself can't live forever. In fact, I'm thinking of covering next week Sutta Baka Brahma. Next week I'll share that. I just finished that sutta, translating it, so I want to share that with you because cover that with you because it's a beautiful sutta to shake off this idea of permanency, of eternalism, or something like that, which we have on an emotional level. So Devadatta thought that if he could get rid of or use Ajata Sattu, if he could get rid of Sariputta and Lord Buddha, he came and said, old man, you've gotten old. He said that to Lord Buddha. So we need the younger bhikkhu. And Lord Buddha looked at him and is like, are you serious, basically? Why would I be interested in designating you as the head of the Sangha when I have Sariputta and Mahamoggallana here? Who are you? You're not even a Sotapanna. What are you talking about? Which, by the way, he had lost because of his psychic abilities being abused, by the way. If the moment you go against the Dhamma, they are lost. The attainments are gone as far as jhana, this and that. And if you had attained Sotapatti, even the first level of awakening, it is impossible for you to go against the Dhamma. You cannot say anything that is adhamma. You can't. If you will soon realize it and quickly get down on your knees and just say, my Lord, what did I do? You apologize for it because it's so quick. If it ever slips, let alone you go ahead and live your life against the Dhamma. That's impossible. Things that we need to know. Also, because the contaminants that would have otherwise arisen, inevitably plaguing the heart of someone else who hasn't yet overcome the sense of fame, burning in his mind with feverish distress, simply would not occur for the bhikkhu who does indeed quickly address the sense of fame whenever he encounters it. If you recall, I think it was last week or the week before, I mentioned briefly the householder Chitta, who was an anagami, who was a teacher of Dhamma par excellence, as they say, and he was a teacher of bhikkhus, Mahatheras, in fact. he had been in correspondence with a young bhikkhu for some time. But then one day the communication stopped, and then sometime later, he's somewhere, and there's a bhikkhu and another bhikkhu, a younger bhikkhu with him. And the elder bhikkhu is not able to answer a question, and the younger bhikkhu says, Bhante, can I explain this? And the elder says, go ahead. So he explains, and there's also the, if I'm not mistaken, a demonstration of some psychic ability, etc. So Chitta sees this. He's there, by the way. He sees this and he says, I will take care of all your requisites from now on. I got you covered. I will, Bhante, I will take care of you. Now, because he had prestige now, that young bhikkhu, because he now had fame, right? Because this is Chitta, a multi-billionaire in today's standards, by today's standards. And somebody who's so well known throughout the sasana as a layman, as a Dhamma expert, as a noble disciple, giving you that support, that means you must be huge, even though you're young. So you have a very promising future, right? And then Chitta asks him, Bhante, by the way, what's your name? And the bhikkhu says, my name is this. And Chitta goes, oh, there was once a bhikkhu I was communicating with, corresponding with in the past, but somehow communication stopped suddenly. Bhante, could it be possible that it was you? And with his silence, basically, Chitta understood that it was him, in fact. So now Chitta is so excited. The next day he comes in to see his new friend, reestablish that, and really start this new friendship growing. He only finds an empty kuti because the bhikkhu had left town. He just left. Why? Why? Because all of that gain, fame, he didn't want to have the minds of his fellow bhikkhus be sullied. Because people are people, they're going to get jealous, this and that, or at least give the suspicion, or have the suspicion in his mind, maybe there might be this. No, 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 no. He walked away from that. Also, bhikkhus, the contaminants that would have otherwise arisen, inevitably plaguing the heart of someone else who hasn't yet overcome the sense of disgrace. I'll quickly go over because it's a repetition of the rest of the paragraph of each. Who hasn't yet overcome the sense of honor, who hasn't yet overcome the sense of dishonor, who hasn't yet overcome evil thoughts and desires, burning in his mind with feverish distress, simply would not occur for the bhikkhu who does indeed quickly address them whenever he encounters them. So there's a saying that my dad used to remind me of. He says, you need to hit the iron when it's hot, the metal when it's hot. Like it's an old saying, I guess. Different cultures have a similar saying, I think, where if it's a blacksmith working with metal, they put it in the furnace, right? And with bellow and all that, it gets really, really red hot. Now it is more pliable. So they pull it out and they keep hammering away at it until they can forge it, make it, turn it into something that they desire. But they're not going to do it when the metal is dark and black and cold. So similarly, the bhikkhu addresses it quickly the moment he spots it. He doesn't delay. When a person has cancer, the longer you wait, when a person has a tumor, the person has an infection, let's be reminded of Malunkyaputa's, the simile that Lord Buddha gave to Malunkyaputta when he was saying, Bhante, I need you to answer these questions, otherwise I'm leaving, I'm disrobing and leaving. Lord Buddha said, did I promise you that I have to give you these answers? So come, wear the robes and I will give you the answers. He says, no, Bhante. He says, okay, so what is this? He says, you're like that person who got shot in the middle of the village with an arrow that's poisonous. And you're saying, nobody touches this wound, nobody touches this arrow until I know who shot me. What type of bow they used, what type of arrow, what type of string, was it animal intestines? What is this? Was it a vine? Nobody touches it until I know what type of poison. By the time that you get any of these answers to your questions, you're going to be dead. No delay. So the sooner you jump on it, you see it, you detect it, do not delay. Otherwise, you're simply extending your loitering period in samsara. You're spending more time in pain, in dukkha, because you do not know. Most of us take it for granted that we're human now, that we're living at a time where the sasana is still available, that's going to be the case in the next birth. There's zero possibility for that. But we believe it. Again, we come back to what I was saying in the beginning. What is the inner narrative? What are you telling yourself? Stop presuming that your next birth will be a human birth, or that you will be at the presence of Dhamma. That's running even slim now. It's a miracle that we still have it now. So nothing about it is guaranteed. Nothing about your birth as a human, a functioning human with a healthy brain human who can understand, who is born at a time, at a place where there's still, and there is the interest in your heart to be exposed to the Dhamma. All these are variables that are so tenuous at best. Meanwhile, you have all of these factors now. So when you need to practice, you need to practice. So you need to realize this, and you sit and you practice more diligently. And bhikkhus, the contaminants that would have otherwise arisen, inevitably plaguing the heart of someone else who hasn't yet overcome the presence of evil companionships or friendships, burning in his mind with feverish distress, simply would not occur for the bhikkhu who does indeed quickly address them whenever he encounters them. So when you detect, when you ask yourself, what am I doing with these people? Well, yeah, you see, I've had a relationship with them. Oh, we've had these memories together. Yeah, but is the common denominator that brings you both together here or interacting with one another, is that common ground, the Dhamma? Or are you apologetic for the Dhamma to them? Meaning, are you like trying to squeeze things like edgewise to make it feel like you're not going to regret being here with this person simply because of your memories? That's the wrong companion. We have to let go of so many companionships. You have to. If you are on the path of Dhamma, it's inevitable. You will say bye to so many different types of connections you've made in the past. It's inevitable. Because you're in the process of purification. You're purifying yourself. The older version of you had different companions because you weren't pure as you are now, as you will be tomorrow. Hence, it needs a refinement of the circle of friends. And if there's no friends to reciprocate that level of purity, it's much better to walk alone, Lord Buddha says, like the royal tusker elephant, walking in the jungle alone. Why? Because there's no companion worthy for his friendship, of his friendship, living and appreciating that. So there's no companionship with the fool, Lord Buddha says. Thus, it is for this reason that it is necessary and wise for the bhikkhu to quickly address these 8 things whenever he encounters them. Therefore, bhikkhus, you should train yourselves in this manner. We will live by quickly addressing any sense of gain as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any sense of loss as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any sense of fame as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any sense of disgrace as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any sense of honor as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any sense of dishonor as soon as it is encountered and fully overcome it. We will quickly address any evil thoughts and desires as soon as they are encountered and fully overcome them. We will quickly address evil companionships and friendships as soon as they are encountered and fully overcome them. It is in this manner, bhikkhus, that you must train yourselves. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The Dhamma is all about our life, personal life, choices, and please don't extricate the Dhamma from your life, thinking that, oh, that's different. Extricating it, removing it, pulling it out and saying, that's for a different time, a different culture, a different way of thinking. Today it's, the age of AI, this, that, world, whatever. No, that's just pure nonsense. You're saying to yourself. The Dhamma is always relevant. It's called akaliko for a reason. Timeless. And it is very directed, very much all about your life. It can't be otherwise. It's all about you. It's not about the other person. It's about you, about us and the individual. So I will pause here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Bhante, thank you for that. I was really appreciative of even something about Devadatta, because I've always wondered maybe the Buddha could have stepped in, but it's quite clear the way you've explained it, and you give us like the backstory that he he was the one who caused this. I've always thought maybe the Buddha could have deferred him from being a monk, but all of this was all of his choices, wasn't it? And yeah, and just likewise they are for ourselves as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up, and it's empowering to know that we are the ones that are in charge of our own lives, really. So yeah, no teacher or anything. So thank you.
In our own, I guess, right, each of us can choose to be Devadattas, to live our life as Devadattas, or not. It's a choice, as you pointed out. It's a choice. And for me, if in my case, as a person, as a practitioner, I would say that if I am not directing my gaze, my attention to the goal of the holy life, then I am living the life of a Devadatta. Every moment we choose to live without sati, or with wrong attention, with ayoniso manasikara, what we are essentially saying, the life, one's own life, no one else is responsible. There's not a Buddha out there sitting on top and looking down and saying, I wonder what he's going to do next. Whether he's going to choose kusala or akusala. No, he's already did that. He's done that and he's finished. It's our turn. Every time we hold the moment of asati versus sati, we are choosing the path of Devadatta, which is a path of ignorance. Why? Because he missed such a golden opportunity. I mean, this is a man who saw Lord Buddha's kuti. He could see it. He knew how Lord Buddha's voice sounded like. When Lord Buddha's face would grow with hair and he hadn't shaved, let's say, for a few days, Devadatta saw that. So he was very much real in the presence of Lord Buddha. How great of an opportunity. He would sit there and listen to Lord Buddha give discourses, respond to questions. He was there, alive, as a human being, as a bhikkhu. Nobody put a gun or sword next to his throat and said, go and become a bhikkhu, Devadatta. Maybe it was because he wanted to be part of the crowd. Maybe his self-esteem was so like beneath the floor that he didn't have a voice. And suddenly he found something. He found, whoa, I can attain these things in my jhana. I have abhinyas. I have the ability to appear and disappear. Wow. And this is what's happening a lot of times with individuals who start a spiritual path. They get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a cookie or a candy here or there, and all of a sudden, it might be something very intrinsic, such as calmness of the mind. And you have a lot of those these days who get a little bit, tiny little smidgen of upekkha somewhere, somehow, but miraculously, and all of a sudden, I hit it. I'm a sotapanna. I'm an arahant, or I'm an anagami. Oh, my brain waves could get so quiet. I have to be. I have to be an anagami, or no, wait a minute. Arahant, yes, that's the one. Or it could be extrinsic. People will look at you and say, this must be the real, genuine article. This person must be. He must be my teacher, must be an arahant. When I was in Asia, people were coming in from Thailand, visiting this and that, and people from, let's say, KL would come back after having spent some time. Practically every single ajahn I was hearing about was an arahant. Wow. My teacher is an arahant, by the way, Bhante. Did you know that? And I said, okay, what can I say? Who cares? I couldn't say that to them because the person has just signed a deal and put so many thousands of dollars to publish their teacher's books, claiming that he was an arahant. So I don't want to take that away from them. Or it could be a few people, not just thousands and thousands of people supporting you. That's still extrinsic. Somebody bowing down to you. Wow, yeah, I guess I am in the big leagues now, as they say. All of this is nonsense. Devadatta fell for that. And fortunately for us, we can use his example as something to avoid, like the plague. But we still are following examples like that today. But we don't have to. And that's why I share these stories, so that we get inspired in the right way. To see, no, that's a like a dead end freeway, and you can't continue on this path because you're going to fall off the cliff if you continue. So the whole point that Lord Buddha was trying to make, to my understanding and my experience, is that before you reach the end of the cliff, make a U-turn. Turn, go away, get out of this path that is taking you to doom. And no one will do that for you. And please do not use your life's responsibilities as an excuse to maintain this dead-end path. And only you, that's how much power each of us has. Only you can do that U-turn, as they say. Devadatta did not realize it until it was too late, because he knew he was getting closer and closer to his death, and he couldn't get himself off bed. And guess what he did? He begged, he told his students, the few students that he had left, please take me to Lord Buddha. He called him that. Please take me to my teacher. Suddenly he's now, all of a sudden, Lord Buddha is his teacher. And they're looking at each other like, why? He's like, I thought he was your nemesis. I thought you hated him. I thought he was the fraud. You were the genuine article, right? take me to my teacher. And then halfway he gets thirsty and he says, oh, let me get me some water. And that's the last experience that he has, because he gets gobbled up in the soil, because he sinks in quicksand and he just is nowhere to be found. That's one of the things that, but terrible. The fear that he was having even before his death was excruciating, because he realized, oh boy, it's coming. And there's no way to fix that. You cause someone else to kill his own father, whom they loved, by feeding him lies, by impressing him the wrong way, using the Dhamma to get to your own ulterior motives. And that is why I am so vocal also as to the state of the sasana today. But the best way to rebel against the corruption of the Sangha, corruption of whatever is happening in the world as human beings, is by really living the Dhamma, by seeing if there's a sense of loss, addressing that first. If there's a love for gain, honor, whatever, respect, this, that, address it. Address it. If you're gold and you dip gold in water and you pull it out, the water is not going to stay on the gold. It's going to, like the leaves or the petals of a lotus, Lord Buddha says. The raindrops coming down on the lotus petals. Oof. So whether you do get the gain, whether you do get the honor, this and that, it really doesn't matter. So that's the goal to be living. That's the way of life that Lord Buddha is encouraging, in this case, bhikkhus, but not just bhikkhus, because fame and this and that, gain, that everybody's interested in for some reason, is not preserved for bhikkhus alone, right? So it's for everyone. So when you are seeking fame, when you are seeking success in anything, any endeavor, please probe it deeper. Go deeper than skin deep and just look. Are you captive to it? Are you attached to it? Whether you do get it or you lose it, because whatever you do gain, you will lose. It's inevitable. So that way you protect yourself when it is lost. So it's very practical advice. So you can benefit from it in so many different ways. You benefit from it when you're gaining, but you also benefit from it when you're losing it. No one talks to you about that. And that way you can stand like a deepa as an island and become a refuge for yourself. So those are some thoughts. I hope they're helpful. If there are no comments or thoughts, let us transfer some merits. Akasatha chabumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam parati. May you be well. May you really honor your birth, your individual birth as a human in this time. And may you really excel in your life, in this Dhamma, and you go all the way, removing all the obstacles, all the limitations that you set up for yourself, as well as those that actions might have brought for you, hindrances, difficulties, etc. That's why please continue having the faith and confidence in yourself, in the genuineness of your virtue, purity of your virtue, which you maintain through your precepts, your dana, your generosity, in different ways, your faith in the devas, and then there's other realms of being other than this. Having faith in the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha teachings, and especially in your practice. Trusting yourself, your refuge. Until next time. Sukhi hota.